juicy poached pears served with an almond pear sauce. Fresh fruit, smooth pastry cream, and apricot glaze combine to make this classic fruit tart. Here's a chocolate mocha inside-out cake covered with toasted almonds. The topic is desserts, and you'll learn how to prepare these recipes on this edition of Cooking at the Academy.
Cooking at the Academy is made possible by Braun, makers of European-designed small kitchen appliances, including the Braun hand blender with mincer chopper attachment. Our commitment to performance-oriented design enables the home chef to prepare a variety of meals quickly and easily. We're proud to sponsor Cooking at the Academy. Cooking at the Academy is a presentation of superior food preparation techniques for the cooking enthusiast.
From the California Culinary Academy in San Francisco, welcome to Cooking at the Academy. Presenting the art of cooking as it's taught to the chefs of tomorrow. So come along. We'll teach you the essentials of preparing and presenting fine cuisine with wonderful step-by-step recipes and fundamental cooking techniques. There's lots to learn, and class is about to begin. So let's go into the Academy's main production kitchen and join Chef Bo Friberg for his presentation of desserts on Cooking at the Academy.
Welcome to Cooking at the Academy. In this program, I'm going to prepare 3 great desserts: a refreshing poached pear, a fresh fruit tart, and an unusual layer cake that I guarantee will impress your guests. I start with Mendocino poached pears with almond pear sauce. First, we have to make what we call acidulated water, and that is simply a lemon or a half a lemon or so into some water, squeeze it a little bit, and that will help keeping the pear white or keep the pear from oxidize or turning brown. I'm going to cut my pears in half and making sure that I get a nice stem on one of the halves. I like to use Poached pears because they always have a very pretty stem on them, and I like the shape. You want to be careful when we peel them, so we keep the stem intact. We also want to make sure that we don't butcher the pear. And since this stem, the side of the pear that has the stem is actually what the guest's going to see, I want to make real sure that I get it nice and even. When it comes to the stemless part, it doesn't really matter. I could do that either way I wanted to, because that's going to be used for the sauce and pureed, strained, and you never know what shape it was before then. Next, we're going to make the poaching liquid for the sauce. It's a very simple recipe. It's basically twice as much water as sugar by weight, cinnamon stick, a few cloves, and vanilla. I also put a quarter of a lemon in here. And then I want to use the stemless pears. I will bring the liquid to a boil and then reduce it to simmering until the pears are soft. I use whole spice instead of ground spices because the whole spices will just flavor the sauce. The ground spice would add color to the sauce when it's mixed together, and I want a nice white sauce. When I have a simmering poaching liquid here, I like to cover the pears with a lid that is slightly smaller than the pan I'm using, or even a plate that fits inside will work fine. And the reason I'm doing that is to ensure that the pears are all down in the liquid and being cooked at the same time and cooked evenly. And now that the pears for the sauce is poached, I'm going to remove them from the liquid. And also pick up the cinnamon stick at the same time. I'm going to pour out part of the poaching liquid. And add the wine. There's no reason to discard the poaching liquid. It could be used to moisten the sponge for a cake. It will keep for many weeks in a refrigerator. I add my pears with stem on them. And now we are going to poach these pears. There's no reason to use any expensive wine for this recipe, since you're using the wine mainly to color the pears and just a little bit for the flavoring. Place the lid on to keep them submerged. To check the pear for doneness, remove the lid. Pick up the pear with a slotted spoon, and it should feel like your finger could come right through the pear with only a slight press. This is a better way of checking it than using a fork, since a fork will leave an ugly mark in the pear. And now that the pears has finished poaching, I'm going to transfer them to this bowl using my slotted spoon. I pour the liquid on top. Careful, it's hot. And then, when it has cooled down, transfer it to the refrigerator for 12 hours. And now we're going to make the pear sauce. First, I need to remove the core, the pear core, which is very small and not much to it. And I find it much easier to do that, first of all, when the pears are poached and using a melon baller rather than a knife. I will puree the pears until they are completely in a sauce-like consistency. I add my water, my amaretto liqueur, lemon juice, sugar, and mix that together. Then to add a cornstarch to the sauce without any lumps, I use a spoon, or I can use my melon ball or anything that is roundish that I can stir with. I put a little bit of the sauce into the cornstarch and mix it together. And then I pour it back into the sauce and blend that together. And now I'm going to bring my sauce to a simmer. And I do this for two reasons: to set the sauce and to cook out the cornstarch flavor. I want to stir it the whole time to keep it from burning. And after 30 seconds, I set it aside to cool. We need to melt some chocolate as part of decoration. This is a special baker's chocolate, we call it, also known as non-temp chocolate, because we don't have to temper it to use it. Placing the ramekin with the chocolate directly into the water is okay for a small amount like this. But you must be careful not to bring the water to a boil. You don't want the steam getting into the chocolate and thickening it. Once the chocolate is melted, remove it from the heat, but keep the chocolate in the water to stay warm and ready to use. I'm going to show you how to make cornets to pipe the chocolate on the plate. First, I fold my parchment paper, you can use wax paper, lengthwise, and cut it in two. And then into squares. You need to use a sharp knife for this, so you get nice edges on the paper. Then I fold it across. And I have 12 little paper ready to make a cornet with. Fold it like so. And put my pre-melted chocolate in there. Secure the top. You don't want to put too much chocolate in because you want the chocolate to come out at the bottom and not at the top and the bottom. Cut the opening very nice and thin. And start at the paper and then move over to the plate. I remove a pear from the poaching liquid. Using a paper towel, I pat it dry. And with my melon baller, remove the small core, and then, starting about a ½ inch from the top, cut the pear into thin slices. Fan it out on my plate. Pour a pool of sauce in front. Let it fall down naturally. Pick a mint sprig, put in the center of the sauce. And there we have Mendocino poached pear with almond pear sauce. Next, I'm going to make a wonderful fruit tart filled with pastry cream, topped with fresh fruits in season, and glazed with apricot glaze. I will start by making my short dough. I add the butter, the sugar, 1 egg, vanilla extract, and I mix this together. Yes, to blend, yes, to combine. I want to be careful not to overmix it. We'll incorporate air to the short dough, making it much softer and harder to roll out to line the pan with. Add my flour. I'm blending in the flour, trying to use a kneading action rather than a beating action. Again, to just minimize the air incorporation to the dough, so I have a nice firm dough to work with. At this point, I'm going to use my hand and just push it together. Now, should the dough seems too soft, probably one of the biggest mistakes is to add more flour to it, figuring that that will help in rolling out the dough. They might help you there, but when the dough is baked and when you're going to eat the tart, the dough will be much too firm or much too hard and not as pleasant to eat. At this point, I flatten the dough out a little bit so it will chill down quicker and refrigerate the dough. And now when the dough has been chilled, I'm ready to line my tart. I start by mixing the dough just a little bit so it becomes smooth and more workable. I will see that as I work away by less cracks in the dough. And the whole time when I work with the dough now, I will use as little flour as possible. I have found that using bread flour rather than cake flour to roll out the dough, any dough, makes it much easier because it's more, it flows out much easier. And also using smooth movements and not any jagged, sharp movements. I roll it down to about 1/8 of an inch. And then roll up the dough using a dowel. If you don't have a dowel, you can use a rolling pin, but be careful so it doesn't unroll itself once you have it up on a rolling pin. Place my false bottom, what we call it false bottom tart pan in front. A false bottom tart pan means that you can remove the bottom to extract the tart. A short dough contains so much fat that there's no reason to grease the pan. Roll it on top, nice and smooth, and then pick it up and get some slack in here before it starts breaking on the side. Use your dowel to cut off the end here. Should a little piece break, you could patch it by brushing some egg white on top of the short dough and glue it together that way. I need to line the dough with some either parchment paper or wax paper. On a short dough, you don't put beans in like you will have to do in our puff paste to keep the dough from puffing up, but rather to keep the dough from settling or sliding down on the side. And now I'm ready to bake the dough at 375 degrees for approximately 12 minutes. And now when the tart's starting to getting lightly brown on the edge, I'm going to remove the beans to continue baking the bottom slightly more. And now that the tart is cooked and the bottom is nice and brown, I'm going to set it aside to cool. Now I will make the apricot glaze. The apricot glaze will go in the bottom of the tart to ensure that the crust won't get soggy, and on the top of the fruit to make sure the fruit doesn't dry up. I will use a heavy bottom saucepan to ensure that the glaze doesn't burn as I make it. I add my apricot jam. My sugar. And my water. Now I'm going to stir the apricot glaze until it comes to a boil. And the reason I stir it constantly is to avoid having it burning. And now when the apricot glaze has cooked down some, we will test it using 2 spoons, dipping one into the glaze and try to pull a thread. It is approximately a 1/4 inch long, and that will tell us that the glaze is thick enough to coat the bottom of our tart. To make the pastry cream, I combine sugar, cornstarch, a pinch of salt, and 1 egg. I do this while the milk is scalding. Once these are blended together, I add a vanilla extract and about 1/4 of the scalded milk to temper the mixture. I do this to avoid cooking the egg. Mix it together and pour it back into the remaining milk. Increase the heat slightly. Use my hand blender. When the pastry cream starts to thicken, I remove it from the heat, but keep on blending for a few seconds to avoid burning in the bottom. Now I need to cool my pastry cream, and to do this, I pour it into this bowl here. And I like to use a piece of parchment paper or wax paper to keep the air out and prevent the skin from forming. If you're not going to use this pastry cream right away, once it's cooled down, they should be stored in the refrigerator. And now I'm going to add my cooled pastry cream to the tart. I want to use a spatula or something to spread it out fairly even. And I don't want the pastry cream all the way up to the very top. I want to leave a little room for the fruit there. Another way that you can make it nice and smooth is to use a flat side of a plastic scraper on the inside. And now I'm going to add my fruit to the tart. I like to remove the green from the strawberry using a melon baller because I get a much cleaner cut doing that. Stand the strawberry up, cut it in nice thin slices. Next, the oranges. I'd like to use a thin knife and also a knife that has teeth on it, serrated knife, that cuts through the fruit much easier. Cut out, yes, what I call the supremes, also known as the orange segments, cutting away so I don't get any of the membranes here. To avoid the pit or the plum, I want to cut on either side of the crest. Lay it on the flat side, cut it in thin slices. The trick here is to move the left hand slightly faster than the right hand. To cut a kiwi, or to remove the skin from a kiwi first, I want to pick one that is fairly ripe but not overripe. Cut both ends off, and then use a thin soup spoon insert the soup spoon into the wider end, carefully remove the skin. Same thing here, stand it up, cut it in half, lay it down on the cut side, and into thin slices. Now I want to remove the tart from the form, because it's easier to do that before I put the fruit on. I slide it on to the cardboard. Then I can begin the first row of fruit with round pieces of strawberry. It's a good idea to cut the fruit right before you put it on a tart. And don't separate the pieces of the sliced fruit. It's easier to use if you can just pick up a piece of fruit and slide a slice off onto the tart. Overlap the rows of fruit a little bit and turn the tart as you are working on it to keep it in a comfortable position. After I have put a row each of strawberries, kiwis, plums, and oranges, I place 2 pieces of kiwi in the middle and surround them with the cross-cut strawberries. The final step is to coat the top of the tart with the apricot glaze. If the glaze is too thick, add a little bit of water so the glaze will go on smoothly and not disturb the fruit. And here you have this beautiful fruit tart. Serve it with just a little bit whipped cream and a sprig of mint. For the final recipe, I'm going to show you how to make this chocolate mocha inside-out cake. What's interesting about this cake is when you cut into the cake, your friends will never be able to figure out how you make it. But I will show you how. To begin, we need to make sponge cakes, a chocolate sponge and an almond sponge. Once the cakes have cooled off, I use a sharp, thin knife to cut a thin layer off the top of each cake. I want a smooth surface on the top and the bottom of the cakes. This thin slice is not used in the final cake, but I do cut the remaining parts of the cake into 3 equal pieces, about a 1/4 inch thick. I do the same thing with the almond sponge cake. However, I will only be using 2 pieces of the almond sponge in the finished cake. I start by putting a dark sponge on a cardboard for support and brush some Kahlua and water mixture on top, and then spread a thin layer of mocha flavored buttercream on top of the chocolate sponge. I usually put a little bit more buttercream on than I need, and then I shave it down, so to speak, using my spatula to an even surface. I then continue in the same manner by adding a layer of the almond sponge, topping it with the Kahlua and buttercream, then the chocolate, and finally a layer of the almond sponge. Then the cake is refrigerated to set the buttercream. Now that the buttercream have set, I'm going to cut a cone-shaped section from the top of the cake. I use a thin serrated knife, placed at an angle, and I dip it in hot water to make it slide through the buttercream easier. And when you come to where you started, you pick up the sponge, put it on a cardboard, and then you're going to spread a slightly more mocha flavored buttercream in the center. Then you're going to use your remaining, the 3rd chocolate layer that you cut out. Place it on top, put the cardboard on top of that, and invert. Carefully press the sponge down so that chocolate layer you now put on top becomes the bottom. Spread that one with a thin layer of mocha flavored buttercream. And replace the cone you cut out at the beginning. Press it down so it sticks. And now we need to refrigerate this one more time. Once the buttercream has set, I trim the edge of the cake with a thin sharp knife so that they are smooth. Then I frost the top and sides of the cake with chocolate buttercream. I use a longer knife to mark from both directions so I can find the center. And then I use my remaining mocha flavored buttercream and a number 3 plain tip in my piping bag, making it a nice spiral here. Then I take roasted, crushed almonds and press them onto the side of the cake. I finish the top of the cake with shavings of chocolate. I use my melon baller to make the shavings. So now the cake is finished, but the real surprise is when you slice the cake. I think it's nice to serve this cake with chocolate sauce and maybe a strawberry fanned out a little bit for color. I hope you enjoyed the program. In professional cooking and baking, a great deal of emphasis is placed on presentation. This is especially true with cakes and pastries. It is every bit as important, however, that desserts taste as good as they look. As my teacher used to tell me when I was an apprentice in Sweden, the customer will buy first with his eyes, but the second time with his mouth.
All the dishes created in this series by the chef instructors of the California Culinary Academy can be made at home from the Cooking at the Academy cookbook. Order your copy now by calling 1-800-441-3000. This beautifully photographed book includes more than 100 step-by-step recipes, complete with the professional tips and cooking techniques from the California Culinary Academy. Please have your credit card ready when you call 1-800-441-3000 for the Cooking at the Academy cookbook.
Cooking at the Academy has been made possible by Braun, makers of European-designed small kitchen appliances, including the Braun hand blender with mincer chopper attachment. Our commitment to performance-oriented design enables the home chef to prepare a variety of meals quickly and easily. We're proud to sponsor Cooking at the Academy. Cooking at the Academy is a presentation of superior food preparation techniques for the cooking enthusiast.
On October 1st, 1987, WNEO and WEAO were granted licenses by the Federal Community